Hey everybody, I'm Rousseau and I do a little work here and there. It looks like we're back in the research workshop. Not exactly to put miniatures into the Unreal Engine, though we'll get to that eventually, but instead to bring my existing modular tiles and walls and whatnot into the program, and as it happens, it's not actually that difficult. And of course, that isn't to say that some parts of this process aren't time-consuming, but you know what, I'll breeze through it and just highlight the crappy parts. Shouldn't be too bad. Just keep in mind that there are some prereqs. You know, that is, I'm not showing the entire process because it starts on graph paper, and I've shown that before. You can go look at the old videos if you're interested. But yeah, it starts on graph paper, and then that moves to Illustrator, or, you know, whatever your product of choice is. And after that, you end up with something like this. Now, this, or really any part of it, can be exported as a DXF file, and those are what I've been using to bring these things into Silhouette Studio. But wouldn't you know, they have another use in Blender, of all places. See, in Blender, if you mess with your preferences, you can set it to be able, I suppose you'd say, to import these DXF files. One slight problem, and you know, it's just if you're not too familiar with Blender, and that is that it imports as a curve and not a mesh. So you'll have all these lines and they'll be real pretty, but you won't be able to do anything with them yet. Object mode, select the object. I want to say it's Alt-C, but in the object menu you can convert it from a curve into a mesh, and then starts crappy part number 1, which is going to the individual shapes, selecting all of their edges, which is easy enough. You just select one edge, hold Control and plus on the number pad, so fingers crossed you don't have a laptop. And once you've done that, you just hit F, and then you have a face. All of those faces can be extruded, but you don't extrude all of them, at least not all at first. You just extrude the outside shape, I guess would be the way to say it. Outside shape. So in the case of this wall piece, it's the big rectangle with the finger joints on the side. Now, once you've extruded that shape, it would be my strong suggestion to duplicate the entire object and just leave it exactly where it is, because that way you can have the rest of the faces separate from this piece, which is really important for some of the next parts. But yeah, duplicate that and get rid of your big box, well, you know, in one of them, since it's probably important to see what you're doing. And what you're doing is just extruding all of these other faces different amounts, and in essence making a mold for at least one side of the piece. After that is crappy part 2 out of 3, which is Boolean operations. Like I said before, there are a few prereqs to this. One of them is sort of a post-rec actually, but one, you will need separate objects, which, if you're following along, you've already got. But the second prereq, really the post-rec, is that when you do the Boolean operation, which in this case is difference, you need the program to not generate errant geometry, which, you know, easier said than done. Which is to say that after a point, this really just becomes trial and error. And of course, most of the time, it's no harm, no foul. You just nudge the thing around a little bit and try again. Sometimes it's really obvious what the problem is, and you can just make the things you're working on thicker, or like I said, just nudge them around a little bit. But if you're waiting for the error logs to tell you what's happened or how to fix it, well, you're kind of on your own. The best piece of advice that I can give is probably to duplicate the object that you're wanting to cut out. So in this case, all of our new extruded faces, the quote-unquote mold, as it were. And then go through that new copy, deleting whatever it is you think might be the problem. And in my experience, the most common issue you're going to run into, or at least the most likely thing to give you these errors, is when one of your objects has two meshes that are already inside of one another but not connected in any way. Well, I guess that, or if one of your meshes is non-manifold, so you'll have to check for that and fix any of the non-manifold areas. But after that, trial and error, one object at a time, you can get all that stuff cut out. And then you get to the third crappy part out of all the parts, which is applying a texture. This one, what can I say? It's just crappy, it takes a long time, so I guess the only advice I can give you is have as few faces as possible. This piece has something like 1,000 faces, so, you know, reducing that beforehand would probably be a good idea. I don't know what the averages are. This is probably really bad, having 1,000 faces for something this small. But again, I don't know. I'm not exactly a video game developer. This, as I've stated before, has another purpose. But yeah, beside the point. Let's see what they look like in the game. And it seems the answer to the question, how do they look in the game, is, looks pretty good. They're not lined up quite right, and yeah, the lighting just doesn't work on my computer. I'm going to say that it's a graphics card error, seeing as, and you can take this for what it's worth, I did buy this graphics card from the roommate of a friend for $20, all of 10 years ago. So yeah, I could complain about the resolution, but like I said before, I'm surprised this thing still works. I continue to be surprised and excited every single day. But yeah, that's part of what I've been working on. I'm still mapping out the system for putting the minis in the game. It's a real heady, complicated thing. But it's cool, it's fine, it's fun. It's a learning experience. But we're gonna have to leave it at that. So until next time, you've been in the Research Workshop, and Rousseau Works, and I'm Rousseau.